Welcome to another episode of Newton's Closet. Today is the aftermath of Hurricane Zeta. Now, we're only about 250 miles from the Gulf Coast, and we didn't get anywhere near the damage of a lot of the towns in Alabama. But as you can see, my lawn is absolutely covered in debris. And this comes from the winds that were howling around last night. You have limbs like this that were snapped off, and you have all kinds of leaves on the ground. You have everything strewn everywhere. And the question now comes as to how in the world does this happen? How in the world does the energy from the hurricane end up causing all of this damage? And what comes to mind is the use of various words. The first word is force. The second word is energy. The third is work, and the fourth is power. All four words are different, and so we'll spend a little time today kind of taking a look at each of these words and how they are related to something like the hurricane. So the idea of force is really a push or a pull, and we measure that by mass times acceleration. So the quicker that something accelerates, the more force is required. If I've got something that's super heavy, then it's going to take a lot more force to move it and to change that same acceleration. And so in order for me to bend over and to pick up these stones right here that are on my patio, it's going to require a tremendous amount of force because they are fairly heavy. And so force is mass times acceleration. This was found by a guy named Isaac Newton. Newton's Closet. Exactly. So if we know what force really is, which is mass times acceleration, then we can talk about what work is, because work is actually using force to move an object or something like that. So for example, if I were to put my hand on this post and I was to push on this post, that's a force, but the post doesn't move. I haven't done any work on the post because the post hasn't moved. The forces are balanced. So for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. That is Isaac Newton's third law of motion. So the idea of work means that I actually have to do something. I actually have to push this object out of the way. So we get back to the hurricane, and again, it's raining a little bit out here at the house. And the idea is that gravity is pulling that rain down. So the gravity being a force, right? The mass of the water droplets is actually being pulled down to the ground. So that is work. Well, how'd the water get up there in the first place? Well, the concept of evaporation of the water from the Gulf of Mexico, where the water went up into the air and then traveled across. Now we're talking about a tremendous amount of work to get all that water up high in the sky. And the idea of it being high in the sky means that it did work to get it up there. So force would be the weight of the rain. The distance is how high it goes, and then it has to travel hundreds of miles. So it's a tremendous amount of work that this hurricane did. And then when it releases the rain, gravity does the work to bring it back down to the earth. So force is mass times acceleration. Work is force through a distance. Now, what is energy? Well, energy is uniquely the ability to do work. Well, energy is measured in joules, and energy is going to be that process where work is being done or energy is being released into the atmosphere. For example, I'm walking around in my yard, and it takes a force for me to do that through a particular distance. But where did I get the ability to do that? That is called energy, the ability to do work. Now, the concept that we have is I eat food quite a bit at times. I eat food, and that is converted to energy within my body. It's a chemical type of energy. Now, that chemical energy is then transferred through the motion of my body to kinetic energy, and therefore I have done work. So you see how they're beginning to relate. Now, power is something a little bit different. It's how fast I do the work that I want to do. So if I walk up a set of stairs and I run up a set of stairs, I have done the same amount of work on my body that I did before. But I have different power because of the amount of time. So power is actually work divided by time. So all four of those ideas, force, work, energy, and power, are slightly different, although they are related. And there's nothing better to talk about that type of thing than a hurricane. And so we hope and pray for the people on the Gulf Coast that they are safe and that they will be able to recover soon. And so I appreciate you tuning in to this first primer on the differences in these words. And soon we'll be talking about the conservation of energy. And I'm going to break out my chainsaw and we're going to cut up some wood and have a great time.